What's up guys, Sanjay Shenoy here from Team Pixel Track and welcome to this brand new video in the Content Marketing Mastery course. As usual, let's do a quick recap of what we learned in the previous lesson. So we learned what a sentence is and how it is important to have a complete thought in a sentence for it to be called a sentence. And what are the parts of a sentence, which is the subject, verb, and the object. We understood what a subject is, a verb is, and an object is. And what are the types of sentences, which were simple sentences, complex sentences, and compound sentences. We also learned about active voice and passive voice and why it is so important that you always write or try to write in active voice as much as possible. And what are the common mistakes while structuring a sentence? It might be a comma fault, it's like fragmenting the sentence unnecessarily, loose connections, so many other things that we learned about. And we also learned about how to write very crisp sentences. And we also saw what are the different tools you can use to make your sentences better and writing a little better than what it was already. So what are we going to learn in this particular video? We are learning how to use better words in this particular video. And before we proceed, I would like to tell you this video is not about how you can use fancy words and how to use flowery fancy words to make your writing look very appealing. Trust me, it does not make your writing look appealing, which is why it is very important that you speak, or rather write in this case, in plain language, and how to use these very nice words which are already in the English language to convey your point and connect with your readers really, really well. So what are you going to learn in this video? You will be learning why you should be writing in plain language in the first place, and what plain language is, and also how to write in plain language, what are the different things that you should be doing, or what are the different words you might have to be replacing, and how to improve your writing vocabulary. Although this might sound very contradictory, but without having the necessity to use fancy words, how to expand your vocabulary and add these words very naturally to your writing. And I have a bunch of examples and downloadable resources which you can use to refer and make your writing really, really good. So let's dive right into this video and find out all about words and how to use plain language. So why write in plain language in the first place? Because a lot of people feel that writing in very complicated language actually makes them look very smart and makes them look very professional. Although in many cases that might be true, like for example, if you're writing like a white paper or a research paper or any kind of academic papers, you might want to not keep it in very plain language. But for the rest of the most documents that you will be creating, or most content pieces that you'll be creating, plain language is all you need. What is plain language? Plain language is all about using simple words and sentence structuring and not going overboard with all of these things. So from a writer's perspective, it really helps you get rid of the writer's block, because a lot of the times what happens is writers feel the need to be very creative and put across the thoughts in a very flowery manner, and that stops them from creating content. So if you go in with an approach of saying that, okay, all I need to do is to explain things in the most simplistic manner, that takes away a lot of the pressure of creating content for you. So basically, this kind of an approach to writing is one that concentrates on your readers rather than anyone else. You know, when you write for people, what happens is you are keeping in mind their levels of time, interest, education, and literacy, especially people with limited English proficiency. So you're keeping these guys in your mind while you're creating content. And when you keep these guys in mind, what it does is it helps you write very clearly and very concisely, and that is all you need. Because once you do that, what happens is it matches the needs of your readers with the needs of you as a writer, which basically means that you are creating effective communication between yourself and the readers. And that is what the entire of marketing is all about, let alone content marketing. Now, to write in plain language is extremely effective because they understand what you're trying to say. It is also extremely efficient because they understand it the first time. They don't have to go through the entire thing again and again and not understand what you're trying to say. And you can apply this principle or approach of using very plain language to pretty much any type of content creation. And because you can use the same approach for videos, for infographics, for blogs, for anything for that matter. Most of the content assets that you can think of, you can use to use plain language to create them. Also, we are in 2019, so voice search is all over the place, and using plain language really helps in voice search and getting your results up there in voice search. So an added advantage is the better the readability of your content is, the better your chances of getting ranked for voice search. So I think I have made my case well enough why you should be writing in plain language. So let's understand how to write in plain language. Okay, tip number 1. All you need to do is use simple, everyday, familiar words. Take, for example, this sentence here. My friend accompanied me for the movie. Instead of using the word accompany, you can just use the word join. My friend joined me for the movie. So things like this. So what I've done is, for pretty much every tip that I'm going to share, I have made a sheet of all the words that you can use instead of all of these complicated words, which you can just, I'll be showing you the sheet at the end of this particular video. Let's just go through the tips once and figure out the rest of the things. So tip number 2 is cut out unnecessary, useless words. This is a big problem, and this is what creates the fluff and all the hot air in the content that you create. And people just lose track because of this unnecessary and useless words. So, for example, despite the fact that she was disabled, she made it to the top. Instead of using the phrase despite the fact that, you can completely replace that phrase with although she was disabled, she made it to the top. Right? It sounds a lot more sharper, a lot more crisper. And of course, it might add a little bit of flavor when you put in despite the fact that she was disabled, she made it to the top. It all boils down to, do you want to add more flavor or do you want to be short, crisp and concise? So that's the kind of balance that you need to maintain when you're writing or creating content for your readers. So tip number 2 is cut out unnecessary and useless words. Tip number 3 is cut out redundant words and phrases. This happens a lot, especially for us Indians or non-native English speakers. We add a lot of redundant words. I'll give you an example of what I mean. For example, I have replied back to the email, please check. What you should be writing instead is, I have replied to the email, please check. Replied back is redundant, because when you reply, you are giving something back. So using the word back with reply is not necessary. In fact, I might as well go out there and say that it might be wrong to a certain extent, right? And this happens with the word revert also. I see a lot of people say, I have reverted back. You just revert, you don't revert back. As simple as that. So this is the most common thing that I have seen across a lot of people, across geographies in fact, which is why I thought that I should put it out here. So cut out redundant words and phrases which you think is not adding any value to the existing message that you have. So the best way to look at it is, if you remove a particular word from a sentence, will the sentence still convey the same message? If it does, then you can just remove those words. You don't need them. Tip number 4 is avoid using jargon and technical terms. I think this is the favorite thing for people in digital marketing to do. They use a lot of jargon, they use a lot of technical terms. I mean, I understand completely because we have a lot of technical terms, but try to avoid using them as much as possible. But if there is a situation, and I'm sure there will be, wherein you have to use technical terms, make sure you explain them. So the more you explain them, the more readers you'll reach out to. Say for example, this example, the dwell time of this page is low. Instead of saying dwell time, you can just say the time spent by users on this page is low. Again, this is kind of making the sentence longer, but what I'm trying to say is, should you be trying to confuse the user or convince the user? So if I were you, I would rather convince the user than confuse the user. So if that is the intention behind your content, try to keep it as simple as possible. Don't use too many technical terms. If you want to use technical terms, just make sure there is some kind of an explanation on your blog somewhere. Tip number 5 is don't change verbs into nouns. Again, I see this a lot happening. This is also on the lines of active voice and passive voice, but let me give you an example for you to understand better. The requirement of the department is that employees work 8 hours a day. Now, this is the requirement. Is actually it's supposed to be a verb, but it has been made into a noun here. So instead of writing it like this, what you can do is the department requires employees to work 8 hours a day. That's the ideal way of writing it, and it makes the same sense. It's much shorter, it conveys the same message, right? So don't change your verbs into nouns. If it is a verb, make sure you use it as a verb and don't convert it into a noun. So I'll be talking about, in case you don't know what nouns and verbs are, I'll be taking a basic grammar lesson also in this particular course, and we'll be going through all of that. So tip number 6 is avoid chain of nouns. Again, I see this a lot happening. Say for example, world population is increasing faster than world food production. What you should be writing instead is the world's population is increasing faster than its food production. What I did was I replaced the noun with a pronoun, and you don't have to refer to the noun again and again in the same sentence. Again, it's not only redundant, it just weighs down the entire sentence and like makes it very confusing and makes it very puts the entire messaging all over the place. So avoid a chain of nouns. Instead of using nouns again and again, you can replace it with a pronoun. Tip number 7 is use acronyms and abbreviations carefully. I see a lot of people using these abbreviations and acronyms completely wrong. So if you don't know what it is, either you look it up and figure out what it is and use it appropriately. If you don't know what it is, just don't use it. It's okay. I mean, don't go out of your way to use something that you don't know, thinking that it'll make you look smart or like a good writer, but it'll end up making you look like an idiot. So don't use it. So for example, Deepak, also known as Digital Deepak. Instead of also known as, I can say Deepak aka Digital Deepak. The reason why I showed you this example is because what people write as Deepak, also known as aka Digital Deepak. So again, it's not only creating redundancy, it's outright wrong to put it out across like that. So use abbreviations and acronyms carefully. If you don't know what it is, again, I've made a sheet. How about I just jump into the sheet and show you all the words for all of these tips that I've just shared. So let me just jump into my browser and show you the sheet I'm talking about. So I'll be sharing a sheet with you called all the words you need, which is aptly named, and based on every tip, well, it doesn't have all the words for every tip, but I've marked it for which tip I mentioned here. This is simple words, unnecessary words, redundant verbs, verbs to nouns, abbreviations, and acronyms. So instead of amongst, you can just use among, attain, arrive at. So people usually use these words. So instead of using these, you can probably use these words. So then there's a sheet called unnecessary words, adequate number of, acceptable, a certain number of, some, a great many, many. These are all the unnecessary words that you can remove from your vocabulary and replace it with much shorter words, which basically convey the same thing. The redundant words, like I said, reply back, respond back, added bonus, you can just use the word bonus, advance notice. Notice is usually advance, so you don't have to say advance notice. Close proximity, the bunch of these things. Again, these are from my own research and all of that, from what I see people using and from what I've collected from the internet. If you think that you can add more words to this, please feel free to like leave a message in the comment section or shoot me an email. I would love to add it to this particular sheets. Verbs to noun, bring to a conclusion, carry out an evaluation. Instead of saying carry out an evaluation, check, evaluate. Again, one of the things that we as non-native speakers do is add a verb to a verb, which I'll be talking about in the next video. So it's like, say for example, let me do research. A lot of people say that. You don't have, the research in itself is a verb, so you don't have to put another verb which is do. So you can just like, let me research is all you need to say to convey that message. So verbs to noun is one thing, adding two verbs is another thing I'll be talking about in another video. So yeah, and all the acronyms and abbreviations that you'll be needing, which you need to be using. So once you know what it stands for, I think you can like properly use them in your content. So there are two more sheets here which I'll be talking about in the further later part of the video. So once that is done, let's come back to this. So let's carry on with the video, shall we? Okay, now that you have understood how to write in plain language, eventually as a writer you might evolve and might want to add a few words that might add a little bit of flavor and yet convince or convey the same message to your readers in a much more impactful way. So if you want to do that, you have to improve your writing vocabulary, and this obviously comes from improving your vocabulary in general. But having said that, there are certain words that you can use while writing to make it more powerful. So let's find out how to improve your writing vocabulary. The first thing that you can do is you can use power words. Power words is something that we have already spoken about in the headlines video. If you haven't watched that video, I strongly suggest you go back and watch that video. For this particular video, I have segregated it in terms of emotion or the emotion that you would like to evoke in your readers. So I've segregated in the same sheet that I just showed you. I'll not go back and show the words. You'll figure it out yourself. And use these power words, especially if you're trying to persuade or convince your users to take a particular action. So basically, power words are usually used in copywriting. And at the end of the day, what you're writing is overlaps between content and copyright, because you want your users to take the next action that you would like to do. That's the whole reason why you're doing content marketing in the first place. So try to include power words in your copy. It definitely helps in a lot of ways. And use transition words very appropriately. For this, I think I should get back into the sheet and show you what I mean by transition words. Let me just quickly jump into the sheet. So these are the power words that I was talking about. If you're talking about something new, you can say introducing, welcome, unique, blah, 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 exclusivity, urgency, that reassure, caring, saving, pain. So these are the different emotions that you can evoke. So depending on what emotion you're trying to evoke, you can use all of these words. And transition words are like basically like first of all, also, furthermore, because, so, similarly, blah, 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 all of these things. So what kind of a transition word it is and what are the different kind of transition words in that particular category is what I've done here. And so yeah, let me jump back into the slides. Now, using transition words actually helps you structure your content in a well organized manner, and it helps in your readability. Now, when you make the readability of your content go up, it definitely helps in your search engine ranking. So this definitely helps, and especially your voice search. So voice search is on a rage right now, and you need to be sure that you're on top of it, and using transition words really help you to drive that point home really easily. So use transition words appropriately. Don't try to use it unnecessarily. The second thing that I strongly recommend that everyone do is you need to read every day. And you can read pretty much everything, but what I try to do is I try to read one piece of news article, some blogs, and I definitely try to read at least for 15 minutes every single day one non-fiction book. If you want, you can replace it with a fictional book also, but I'm not a big fan of fictional stories, so I just stick to non-fiction books. So read every day at least for 15 minutes, and ideally speaking, read a book. So that really helps, and that will really help you learn new words every day, and that's how you increase your vocabulary. And when you learn new words, you need to try and incorporate them into your daily language as much as possible, so that you know how to use it properly, and that way automatically you can start using them very naturally while you're writing also. So read every day. That will help you learn new words every day. And one thing that really helped me is when I learned the roots of each word. So it's very difficult. It's a very difficult topic, but I learned it when I was coaching for my MBA, when I'd gone for my CAT exams, and I didn't get through, guys. In case you were wondering, well, I'm glad I didn't. But anyway, so there was a particular section where you are taught about the root of that particular word. So they break down the word and tell you how that word came into being. So most of these roots are like Latin, French, and all of those things. So English is a mixture of a lot of different languages, right? So if you understand the root of the word, you guess the meaning of the word immediately, and that is the whole point of the class that we used to have for our CAT training. So in our CAT exams, they used to give us words which was like super difficult to even pronounce, let alone understand what it means. And we had to figure out what it means without using a dictionary. And the only way to do it is break down the word, understand the root of each section of the word, and then figure out the meaning. So this really helps in grasping new words and actually making up new words also, so to speak. So yeah, try to learn the roots if time permits. I'm not gonna lie, it's quite difficult. It's very complicated and technical, but it's a very interesting topic nevertheless. Use a thesaurus. Thesaurus is like a dictionary, but something that gives you alternate words or synonyms for your words. So use a thesaurus and expand your vocabulary as much as possible. You live in the internet age. You just have to like basically Google it for you to know what other words are there for a particular word. And understand phonetics. Phonetics is basically how do you pronounce a word, right? Again, there is a way, depending on British English, American English, there are different ways to pronounce things. But I suggest that you just stick to British English because that's what we use in our everyday language. I mean, I'll just leave it to you how you want to use it. But if you open a dictionary, right next to the word, there is a way the word needs to be pronounced, the way they have structured it. That is what phonetics is about. They would have described how the word needs to be pronounced. Again, this is a very, very deep topic. This really helps you in your pronunciation and understanding of the word. This is something that we should have been taught at a very young age, to be very honest. And I'm very pissed off with our education system for not teaching us this, because it's super important to know how to pronounce these words. And because of this, a lot of people around you might have observed this also. They pronounce a lot of even simple words wrong. So if you understand phonetics, if you understand how to read a word, the moment you see it, you can understand how to pronounce it. So understand phonetics, that'll help you understand the language a little better. A fun tip for all of you is go ahead and play Scrabble. Scrabble is a board game which you can play with others, and basically you have to make words using a few pawns that you have, and the better words you make, the better points that you make. So there are other word games also out there, but my favorite is Scrabble, and that's one of the most popular ones out there. So buy a Scrabble, and it's a lot of fun to play Scrabble, to be very honest. You can just ask your coworker, or you can play with your family, your siblings, whoever it is, roommate. So play Scrabble every day. You'd be surprised how many new words you'll learn just because of Scrabble. I used to play a lot of Scrabble when I was a kid. So very interesting game. And trust me, I think that's a game that you can play and actually learn at the same time. So that's how you improve your writing vocabulary. And I would like to bring to your notice that all of these do not happen overnight. It takes a long period of time of listening, of understanding, of constantly improving to increase or improve your writing vocabulary. But stay patient, stay persistent, and eventually you will improve your vocabulary to a large extent. So that's it for this particular video. I hope that this video was useful to you. Let me know what you think of this video. You can either drop in your comments in the comment section below, or send me an email at sanjay@pixeltrack.in. Also, don't forget to check out my blog, sanjayshenoy.com. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.